Hey there, welcome back to Online Marketing Foundations. We're still in Module 2, Commit to Lead an Audience. Now, in the last lesson, we talked about niching, how to kind of define who it is you serve and the problem you're going to help them solve. After you've done that, then you're going to move to the next step, which is what we're talking about here in Lesson 3, which is how to research your market, how to really get in there and do the market research to understand your niche. Now, if you ever listen to marketers talk, they're going to talk about market research. They're going to say how important it is, etc. And to give context within kind of the badass online marketing framework, the reason why this is in the commit stage is because, or the commit piece is because you can't really lead an audience until you understand your audience. You have to understand their motivations, their pain points, their goals, all of those things if you really want to lead them. And so that's how this fits in to the BOMU framework. So that's what we're talking about in this lesson. Let's get started. And we're going to start with the truth bomb, which is that if you don't truly understand your audience, you will never build a successful business. This is something I'm telling you from experience. When I was first getting started in the online space, I struggled. It was really hard. I couldn't reach people. I couldn't connect with people. I couldn't do those things. And looking back, I know exactly why it was. It was because I didn't understand my people. I had skipped the market research stage. I said, I know what they need. And I was coming from a place of hubris. What changed for me, or one of the things that helped me kind of turn things around, was taking the time to truly understand my people. When I did that, things changed in my business. So the truth bomb, basically, you gotta spend time understanding them if you want to build a business. Now, in this lesson, what you're going to learn is how to find your potential customers. You're going to learn that market research is about listening, not talking. And you're going to listen to kind of like you'll understand what questions you want answered. Like, what do you want to have figured out to say that you've really kind of done your market research? And I want to be clear, this isn't something that you're ever done with. You will always be doing this on a perpetual basis. You will always want to deepen your understanding of your audience. But I'm saying kind of, hey, what are the things you want to know the answers to, to feel like you've got your footing here? So that's what we're going to talk about. Let's get started. The first point is we got to talk about how to find your potential customers, because let's be honest, market research starts with you finding your audience of potential customers. Like, if you don't know where they are, if you haven't found them, how the heck do you research them, right? I mean, you can't actually do the research until you find the people. So it's pretty self-evident, but it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. So I want to talk to you quickly about how you do this. Now, a quick point. Since you're building or starting an online business, you better be able to find your people online. In other words, if you say, well, I can't find them online, but I know there's this meetup here over here in person, or there's this or that, like, offline stuff. Well, that's great. I'm all for doing that too. But if you're not able to find where your people, where your audience is hanging out in an online space, I'm just going to tell you, it's going to be a struggle for you, because you're going to try to attract them in the online world. And if you don't know where they are, it's going to be pretty darn hard to attract them later. So do the work here. Find where it is that they are spending time together online. Normally, and kind of the most promising place is going to be groups. And I mean this in the largest sense of the words, kind of anywhere where your folks would be hanging out or kind of, having conversations or common conversations, anything like that as a group in this broad sense of the definition. The most obvious examples are things like Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Literally, these are communities of people with similar interests who are talking, having conversations, etc. Those are some of the most promising places to really kind of do this work of market research. Now, another place or another thing that kind of fits in with a broader definition of groups here is like hashtags on Instagram. Now, it's not technically a group, but people who are using the same hashtags are all part of, kind of in a broad sense, the same the same group having the same conversation or having similar conversations. So that's a place that you can look as well. Now, another option is topic forums, places like Reddit. I haven't ever used it personally, but it could be that for your audience, there are those kinds of discussion boards and forums on Reddit or similar places, and that is kind of the this is kind of the big thing, or the most obvious place for you to go. So that's an option as well for a group. And, groups, like I said, are the most obvious place, but you can also start your journey and find some groups. For example, find your audience by consuming content. So if you don't know of any groups, you can start with content that your audience is consuming. Let's kind of talk about different options here. These are pretty obvious, but find and listen to podcasts in your niche. And I'm not talking necessarily about direct competitors. I'm talking about people who serve the same people but help them solve a different problem. You could do the same thing with blog posts. You could find blog posts and other written content that is directed to the people you want to serve. And you could find and watch YouTube channels. Again, these can be helpful because there's comments, and you could definitely see that. But the cool thing here is all of these things, first of all, they're going to help you to kind of start to understand the problems people are facing, because the people creating the content, hopefully at least, have already done some of this work, understand what people want, and are actually speaking to those problems. So even though it's not directly researching and listening to your people, you're hearing other people who are talking to the same people. So that can have some value. But here's the cool thing. If you find a piece of content that's relevant, you can follow a trail to then find where the readers, listeners, watchers, whatever, hang out. Oftentimes there will be a call to action. Hey, join my group. Or hey, come over here where we can continue the conversation. Those calls to action in podcasts, in blog posts, etc., can help you find an actual community where kind of a two-way conversation is happening. And so that's why I'm saying the content can also get your foot in the door into those groups if you don't know where to find them. So that's how content can play a role. Now, an important concept here that I hope you're getting is you don't want to start from scratch. You're not trying to go and create a group from nothing to collect your audience. Not at this point, not in the market research stage. What you want to do is find people and groups that have already collected your audience. In other words, when you're doing market research, you want to find where your people are already hanging out together rather than trying to get them to come to you. You want to go to where they are and spend your time there. And the easiest way to do this is a concept known as the Dream 100. And broadly speaking, the Dream 100 is a list of people, companies, places, and even hashtags where your people are already hanging out. Now, in the traditional world where people use this, they would say it's people and companies like software and thought leaders and things like that. I added places and hashtags because, again, the goal of this for me is a bit different. Some people use the Dream 100 as literally trying to get those thought leaders to send an email about you, promote your product or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about leveraging those people and the audiences they've collected to do your market research. So what you have to do is basically come up and think broadly, hey, where are 100 places where my people are hanging out? And will be, with certain thought leaders in their communities, with certain companies and in their communities, etc. So that's what you're trying to do and figure out here in this Dream 100. Here's the process of doing it. You start by just doing a brain dump of, again, companies, hashtags, people, etc., that come to mind that are relevant, that serve your people. Again, just come up with, list them all. You're not going to come anywhere close to 100, most likely. I mean, if you can come up with 100 folks in your brain dump, then you probably already have a pretty good understanding of your people. So I'm guessing you probably can't, but come up with all the ones you do. Then from there, what you're trying to do is find connections and basically say, okay, from those people, how can I then go and figure out more people based on this list I have? One way to do it is Facebook has a tool of audience insights where you can kind of see, you could put in, you can do this with your business page if you have it, but you can also do it with other people's business page. You could, for example, say, okay, I want to see basically you would put in a certain person or a certain page, a Facebook page, as the starting place. And what this audience insights will do is let you see other pages that have a lot in common, meaning have a lot of the same audience. And so if you put in person X's page, then you might find, ooh, okay, their people, the people who follow person X are also following person Y, person Z, and just kind of go down the list, and you can find some other names that way. Now, again, you can also do this by seeing who the people you've already identified, like go on Instagram and say, who do they follow? And go and look at those accounts and say, oh, are these accounts talking to my people too? If so, hey, there's another person to add to the list. So you're kind of going out, and you can do it with podcasts as well, right? If someone has a podcast, you can like look over all of the people they've had on their podcast and say, is this person collecting? And you can kind of go down that route too and expand and expand and expand. So this is kind of how you come up with the list. Now, you don't have to get to 100. It's not a magic number, but you need a lot. And once you've done it, what you want to do then is pick the 5 best. So once you're at 100 people or a bunch of people, pick the 5 best. And here what you're trying to think about is, this is going to be for market research. So when you're saying best, you want to say the ones who are going to give me the best access to do market research. So ideally, they have some kind of community, they have some kind of thing, or they're very active on social and have a lot of people engaging with them on social, because that's what's going to let you actually kind of see these communications happening. And so that's what you're going to have to do when you're looking at the 5 best is, you want someone where you'll be able to do the market research either in a community they have on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., or that you're going to be able to kind of follow them on social media and, really kind of closely follow, and there's going to be a lot of engagement that will help you to really kind of understand them. So that's how you pick the 5 best. And then you're going to focus the market research we're going to talk about in the next piece here of this lesson on those folks. So that's what you're doing once you've identified and found your fans. Then you're going to go into market research. And before we talk about anything, I want you to clarify this point. Point 2, research here, the market research is about listening, not talking. Once you found your audience, your job is to show up, be among them, and listen. Do not come in hot. The biggest mistake a lot of people make is to skip listening and come in like asking questions and trying to engage and do all of those things. And it just seems kind of odd to people. They're like, what's going on here? Don't do that. And the clearest example is in the context of a Facebook group. And if you're in Facebook groups, you've seen this. If you're active, like, I've seen it multiple times where someone comes in and it is a clear market research post. And it's someone I've literally never seen in the group before. So they've never participated. And by the way, nowadays you can see what their engagement in the group has been. So you can see someone, hey, they joined the group 2 days ago and now they're coming in and asking questions. And it's like, it's not like questions asking for help. It's one of those clear things asking people to tell them, something, and it's a clear market research. If I could wave a magic wand and solve this problem for you, what would it be? Or things like that. Don't do that. What I'll tell you is, those posts get ignored because you haven't provided value before you're making an ask. I always joke, I don't do this, but I joke with people that I'm always tempted to give an answer that's like a kind of a smart aleck response and is not actually a helpful answer, and is actually kind of the wrong way. I don't do it, but my point is that there is some level of, if you come in and are immediately asking questions and making an ask, you're not going to have success. The right way to do it is very different. You start by just spending time in the group without saying anything. And if it was like someone didn't have a group, but they're a thought leader and they have Instagram, very engaged Instagram posts, it's the same thing. You just start by kind of reading their posts and reading the engagement, reading the comments that happen on that person's post. So again, whether it's comments in a group or, reading posts and reading comments, etc., that's what you're doing here. Then you're going to take time to just be there and see the rhythms of the group, of the posts, etc., kind of what's happening. What's the normal thing that happens here? Because you want to be a good member, someone who fits in the group. That's the people who are going to get good results here, is you just become a member and, it's a natural organic thing. And that requires you to figure out what the rhythms are. Now, once you've gotten your bearings, you can start answering a few questions if you're in a Facebook group, engaging with people if, you're doing it. If it's someone's Instagram, maybe you start by just putting your own comment on the person's page. And then over time, you'll maybe start having side conversations and engaging with other people who are also commenting on this person's post. So that's kind of how it happens organically. And that's the way this works, is it's an organic process. It's not something where you come in and try to speed it up by asking questions. Because again, what I want you to think about here is the goal isn't to get leads. The goal is to understand the people you want to serve. And if you come in hot, it doesn't really help you with that, and it seems salesy, it seems over the top, and it will annoy people. So just don't do it that way. Do it the right way by participating. So with that in mind, what are kind of the questions that you want answered? What do you want to understand, and what are you trying to get out of this market research? Well, this is market research. So basically, you're looking for information relevant to your job as a marketer. And you might say, I don't have a job, I'm my business, but you get my point. Relevant to what you're trying to do as a marketer. And this goes back to back in Module 1, where we talked about what is the job of a marketer and what is a marketer trying to accomplish. And so that's what we're doing. And what I would say is kind of your goal is this. You're listening to determine what offer to create, how to communicate its value, and how to over-deliver to your audience. Those are the things you're trying to figure out. That's kind of the research you're trying to do here. And when you can answer those questions, you should feel pretty good. So let's talk about each one of them in turn. We're going to start with the offer. So for this, what you want to do, among other things, find your audience's biggest pain points. What are the things that they are suffering from the most? What is the thing that they said, man, if I could just get this solved, it would make me so happy. And you listen for that, you hear it, etc. Then you determine kind of, if you can, what they've tried to solve the problem before. Like, what is it that maybe they've tried and didn't work? Because that's going to be a good sign of don't do that, right? If you hear a lot of people saying, well, I tried that and that didn't work, you don't want your product to fall into that same camp. But then also figure out what type of product they prefer. And here's an example I want to give people is, I was once a part of a group somewhere, and a woman was saying she wanted to serve people who were like already had successful, like multiple six-figure businesses build their teams and really kind of work on their teams. And her idea was to create an online course and, very limited support. And I was in this group with her, and I said, I don't want to, rain on your parade, but people at that level, some people will want a course, but a lot of people are actually going to want something more. They're going to want coaching. They're not going to want a course because they don't want a, kind of DIY, I've got to go learn and figure it out. They want to kind of, they have the money, they have the resources. They want you to help them solve that problem. Now, that won't always be the case, but I gave her that insight, and I think it was a valuable thing for her to understand that the type of product you're going to offer will often depend on your audience. Now, partly on their budget, but also partly on where they are, how they like to consume information, etc. So you're trying to figure all of this out so you can craft the perfect offer. You can create a product that meets the demand they've already got, right? This is where this market research comes in. So that's the offer piece. Then it's about how do you communicate the value? So you need to be listening for things to understand this. Now, number one, do they actually know the real problem? Now, this might seem weird to you, but a lot of times people don't, they're talking about a symptom, not the actual problem. And so you have to understand that, which means that in your messaging, you can't talk about the real problem. If they're not aware of the real problem, they're talking about a symptom. Then your communication needs to relate to that symptom, to what it is that they perceive as the problem. So this is an important thing for you to understand in how you communicate. But also you need to understand what words do the folks in your audience use to describe their struggles. Again, if they use the word overwhelm, if they use, those things, kind of getting in their head and understanding what their language patterns are. But also, how do they describe success? An important part when you're trying to communicate value is something called future pacing, where you talk to people on, about things like, wouldn't it be great if? Imagine how wonderful your life will be when, like things like that. And you're going to do that, and you're going to then say, and my product is going to help you get there. Well, to be able to do that, you have to understand what they consider success. What is it that they would say, that's what I want? And this isn't necessarily the problem. Again, it's the language. How are they describing it? Because that will help you to communicate value when you get to that point. Now, let's talk about over-delivering, because this is a piece that, again, a marketer is about how do you deliver, kind of the offerings, et cetera. And what I'm going to tell you is when you can over-deliver expectations, that's when things can be truly, magical, because those people are customers for life. And to over-deliver, you kind of need to understand what are their going expectations. So, understanding obstacles that maybe you could help your audience eliminate that they don't even think that would be included, but hey, you're going to include it. That's over-delivering. But also, what are their expectations about availability, about content, and other parts of your offer? Because again, what I want you to get is like, if you learn that your audience expects you to be available to answer questions for them, you need to know that. Or if they don't generally expect it, but you deliver it, they would be like, oh, wow, you're going above and beyond. And so again, having an understanding of these expectations, that is kind of the general expectation in the market, in your niche, will help you to be able to actually over-deliver and give them something that kind of, surprises and delights them. And that can create a customer for life. So those are kind of the over-deliver things you want to understand. And hopefully, and what I want you to, hopefully you hear from this, and when you see these, that you can kind of see these aren't questions that maybe you're going to be able to really get answers to by asking questions. Because, you're not going to be able to say, hey, well, what are your expectations? Or, hey, what is your favorite kind of product, or something like that. You're going to sit there and you're going to listen, and you're going to kind of see what people are talking about. Now, some of them, maybe you could ask direct questions. But what really happens, the way you really find the answers, is by spending time with your people over an extended period of time. You're listening, you're just there, and you're part of this community for a long period of time, and you'll start to just hear the language patterns, hear the way they describe things. That's the magic. Ultimately, you have to become a part of the community, not someone who's just there doing research in it. That's when you actually get the magic, is when you are a part of the community. So, kind of summing up here, market research may not sound fun, but you'll never thrive if you don't understand your people. So this kind of is the key takeaway I want you to get. Hey, you got to do this stuff no matter whether it sounds fun or not. And so that's the reality. So you need to commit to taking the time to understand your audience. That's it for this lesson. Now, in the next lesson, you'll learn how knowing your core competencies impacts your business. This is an important one we're going to be talking about, and I can't wait to get into it. I'll see you in the next lesson.